Hello and welcome back to the How I Ripped Off the Buffy the Vampire Slayer... No, don't do wrong. The Buffy the Vampire... Okay. Yeah. Oh, we've only done like 140 episodes. Hello and welcome back to the How I Ripped Off Buffy the Vampire Slayer podcast for the final time. My name is Tim Thompson and I'm joined, as I always have been, by MC. That is me? You're changing the intro. You.
Oh my god.
When this podcast ends, we cease to exist.
Oh, if only.
I was just hoping it was something nice and dark. Brilliant. And this is, well, just kind of a retrospective when I look back at Tamora Gayson, How I Ripped Off Buffy as a whole, and just to kind of, you know, put together our thoughts and feelings on the whole process.
Unpack all those repressed memories you have about this series and all the horrible
I
shit.
had a professional for that. So, MC, Tamora Gayson, we did, well, 4 full-ish seasons and a spin-off with notes and a plan to do a final season, a final spin-off season, and a final movie ending of it.
That's confusing and overwhelming, but sure.
I'm really glad I said all that. So how have you found it, man? How have you found doing the podcast?
I have enjoyed it. It's been hilarious. There's been so many good recurring bits that I've really enjoyed going back to.
Yes.
I've been persistently grateful that it's not my shitty teenage writing that we've been going through.
Can we find some of yours, please? Is that okay? To balance it out?
Absolutely not. Yeah, dude, it's strange. It's been part of our lives for years now.
Yeah.
Like, just, you know, regularly once a week or whatever, doing an episode, putting it out. So it's going to be strange without that.
Yeah, it does feel really weird to be at the end because I always kind of knew it was coming. Eventually, like it did end, and I knew like I never finished it as well. But it kind of felt like it just kind of happened. Like we were in season 4 and we had Chip's spin-off as well, and then it was just like, oh, we've done it now. So what happens now? What do we do now?
And we did increase the volume of it because we had Chip as well as Tamora Gayson.
We moved to doing 2 episodes a week, which meant a lot of editing for the weeks and stuff like that. But I think for the most part, the exception of maybe like a bit of Christmas and maybe a day or 2 here and there when I forgot, we've pretty much kept that schedule, which has been nice.
It's very impressive.
Yeah, I'm quite proud of that. I'm quite proud that we've managed to put out nearly 150 episodes of this weird thing. And it's weird to go back because I went back and I listened to a few of the earlier, like from the first season, our first couple of episodes. And straight away I was like, oh, would have cut that out. Oh, there's a smack of the lips there, and shouldn't have recorded in my old flat when it was already echoey, and should have got a better mic from the start. And
well, better late than never.
And just how kind of involved the show became since that first episode, which was just us being like, let's just read it and see what happens. You know, there's no dialogue in the first episode. It's a page and a half long. It's just a joke. And then it ended up with me trying to be a serious writer person and failing.
How long were the early episodes? I can't remember.
First one is a page and a half.
Yeah, but like in terms of the recording time, like how long are the actual podcast episodes?
They range from about 16 to 25 minutes.
Wow.
Something like that. And I think that's probably pretty much the case through the entire kind of season. Because then we started breaking them down. It wasn't until about halfway through the first season that we started breaking them down into 2 parts as well.
Yeah.
And then to keep it into that kind of 20-minute length. And then obviously as the episodes got longer, we decided that we weren't really going to split anything into longer than 2 parts because, you know, if people are listening that far in, they're here for the long haul, right? You're all still here. Hello, is anyone listening to this?
Come back, please. We're so lonely.
And I probably enjoyed it a bit less than you did. But I am going to miss this kind of, this process of just sitting down and just laughing for about an hour as we went through. And like, yeah, I mean, the good thing is I can laugh at myself. I hope that's something that's come out of the podcast and put a lot of things to bed as well.
Yeah.
But I'm going to miss that process of sitting down with you once a week to read this thing that is inadvertently hilarious each week.
Yeah. So on the, you mentioned about how it's been sometimes a little bit painful to go through this, and I think I've sort of touched on this before in episodes. But would you say that the podcast has been good for your self-worth as a writer or bad? Like, do you read through and go, I pen and paper just not allowed for me anymore. Just anyone sees me with them, just confiscate them. Or is it like, oh my God, I've improved so much?
Both. I mean, you can. I know in my sort of brain muscle that I've definitely improved as a writer, and I'm very thankful for that. We think we said it before. Is like I'm very glad that I never went back to this. I was like, oh my God, this was really good. Like, I should write this more. Like, do some more of it.
I could just send this to Joss Whedon.
And it's been quite cathartic in a lot of ways as well, to see not only the writing, but me as that person that has grown, which has been quite nice. Mixed in with all these like horrible moments of like trying to put myself back into that mindset of me as a teenager to go, where was I at this point? What was I feeling? Like, what was wrong? Many things. Why was I so angry at the world?
Like retroactive therapy for your teenage self.
Yeah, so it's nice. But in a way, like on the downside, weirdly, I had this thing the other day where, like, since lockdown, my kind of desire to write has just kind of pretty much vanished. Like, this is why another point why I've enjoyed the podcast so much is because it's a creative outlet.
Sure.
But in terms of like writing and scripting and stuff like that, like I've just dried up because it's just killed my motivation for it.
Yeah.
So in a way, I'm almost jealous of Teenage Chip and just how prolific he was with writing this.
It's got to be like the most. I would be curious to see how many words in total there are in entire series, because it must be like a novel or something like.
I nearly went and did that. I ran out of time today, but I was going to go back and do the word count for all of them.
Yeah.
I think the longest one is something like 9,000 words.
Jesus, I mean, that's one episode. Like a tenth of a decent-sized novel.
Yeah, and I was looking at a few of them, and there's kind of like 7, it seems to be like an average, 7,000 word per episode-ish. That's a really rough estimate.
I guess that's the thing about being a dipshit teenage writer.
Hello.
And I include myself. I was definitely one of them. But like, you don't get that self-criticism, that self-doubt. You don't have that editor in your head going, this is shit. You're just writing, this is amazing. I'm the best writer ever. And then Chip has sex with the underage mafia girl.
No, she wasn't underage when that happened. He waited. That makes it okay, I think.
But yeah, you don't have that, all those sort of mental baggage slowing you down. You just fucking write.
I mean, you think about, like, back in those days when we were in our mid-teens, like 15, 14, whatever, like, we made so many little short films.
We did a lot.
Because we had a fucking camera and we were like, let's just go do it. There was no... I did a little storyboarding and planning. We did a bit of scripting maybe, but we just did it. There was no thought of like, we're going to think this is shit in a while. That overthinking wasn't there.
Yeah.
And I miss that.
Because of that, we probably improved more as writers, as creative people, whatever, than we would have if we'd done it the sort of more adult-brained way.
Absolutely.
Because we just produced so much fucking shit. And it was shit, but you got to produce the... Like somebody said, that you got to write 1 million bad words before you can write any good ones. Yeah. And I mean, you did a good fraction of 1 million. They were definitely bad.
I feel like I'm on like 999,999 right now, and I'm like so close to getting there. Shame I stopped. But I've always said as well is that you're not a writer if you don't have crippling anxiety about everything that you produce. But obviously, when back in that time you didn't really, and I miss that. That is one thing I miss is having that freedom of anxiety about everything and just being able to just sit down, write, produce something and put it out there. Because obviously this was never edited or anything like that.
Really?
If you noticed. But yeah, I miss that aspect of it. So speaking of teenage versions of ourselves, how do you feel you, MC, were represented in the show?
I think some aspects are definitely true, such as my hatred of babies and children.
But not quite to the extent
No,
that you were with Amy.
Honestly can't remember. Like, as a teenager, was I always anti having kids? I feel like I've always been pretty much anti having kids.
It's hard to tell because you put up such a wall about it since in this fictional series you had a baby. That I feel like, yeah, maybe, or I don't know. It's hard to tell.
Is this you like exploring the concept of me having kids and coming to the conclusion this is a terrible idea? Where I going to wind up neglected or murdered?
Well, if I didn't before, I do now.
But no, I think like definitely as a teenager, I went through that whole phase of like emotions are bad. You know, I'm just going to be this coldly logical sort of unthinking person. So I think there's definitely elements of that in my teenage self and in MC the character.
Yeah, but I don't think I ever thought of you that way. I think anything that was kind of you in the show itself was almost that surface level kind of stuff.
Ginger,
computer genius, mixture of like a suede coat, your love for a DeSoto, chainsaw hands, like a fear of sharks.
Yeah.
These things are very sort of surface level, and I do think the characters, while being like weird avatars of ourselves, were never really us. We just kind of, I mean, obviously it's me projecting certain things, more about me, I think, as well, but like less so about you and Jay and Louise and Gav and Dom and everyone else that, you know, whose identities I stole for this.
Yeah. I mean, Louise does love low-fat butter. And how about yourself? Do you feel that Chip was you? Like, to what extent was it you, and how much was it sort of wish fulfillment?
Well, it depends, because I never really wanted to go evil.
But it did happen in real life.
I mean, obviously, as a teenager, I was very influenced by a lot of new metal and angry singers that were mad at their dads, and stuff like that. So I think kind of a lot of the angst that I was feeling, and in a way, it was almost like a weird type of therapy, because it was like, oh, Chip is sad, so he's going to be angrier than the world, and it's like things I couldn't really convey, and it's like not like I was going to go out and start shooting heroin or anything like that. So it almost became like a weird diary for me in a sense, whilst also trying to, you know, live up to my heroes, my writing hero at the time, Joss Whedon, you know, and loving Buffy and Angel, to write my own version of that. So it was a weird amalgamation of like therapy and bringing like these warm hugs of things that I knew, and just trying to flex my creative muscles as well, because it took me a while to kind of realize that is what I was. You know, like as a kid, like I used to make up stories with like my wrestling figures and stuff like that. Like they'd have feuds and ongoing storylines, and I'd write it all down and write up the reports from the matches I had with my toys and stuff. So there's always been some sort of avenue for that, and this just felt like the next stage of that evolution.
Kind of on the same subject of the character arcs for the characters. How much was, touching on what you said a second ago, like how much was the development of Chip a reflection of the development of you, and how much of it was the development of Chip as a fictional character? Like when Chip does something, is that because it's teenage you going like you said, you know, I feel angsty and sad, so therefore Chip is going to do this? Or is it you going as a writer, okay, well, here's where Chip is, this is how I think he would develop?
Wow, do you know, all the time we've been doing this show, I wasn't expecting such a deep and philosophical question. Fucking hell. It's hard to answer that in a way as well, because I feel like kind of the stages that I wrote this, so sort of 14 to 17-ish, you know, around about that time, I don't have a lot of memory of, to be honest. Like very vague pieces, because it was such a long time ago now. So I feel like any of the angst and like, you know, the emotions that I was feeling at the time almost unconsciously went into the writings. It was never sort of like, oh, I feel sad, I can't talk to anyone because I'm a bloke, you know. So I'll put it into some writing. I think all of that was very subconscious. Yeah. And it was a lot of it was just like, I want to write a supernatural crime-fighting ninja series. And yeah, there was a bit of like, yeah, MC and Chip have long black coats and they're cool and they're ninjas and stuff like that. And obviously with Chip going evil, that was kind of a slight gag at the same time, because, and obviously a rip-off of Buffy, because Angel does that with Angelus.
You made me put down in writing once that if I had to literally write down, if Chip ever goes evil, I will kill him.
And I hope you still adhere to that promise that you made. If that switch goes. So yeah, you can, I mean, with the writing itself, just in a kind of format and grammar and that sort of thing, you can see there is an improvement despite not being perfect. I mean, in all fairness to my teenage self, I missed a lot of school. So kind of grammar and stuff, like learning things and the rules of it, was stuff that I missed out on. Well, I mean, that's a subject for another day. But obviously, if you're a close friend, you know that story. But I missed a lot of school. So I don't think...
Too busy fighting crime.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think as a kind of just almost an analytical level of just like... it's like I don't understand how the rules of commas and colons work and stuff like that. So it's nice to know that I did learn a lot of that as I was going on. And I think and even the format of the show, not just the writing itself, like the writing did get better despite never being good. Yeah. But the format of the show's definitely improved as well. Like I said, listening to the first episode, which is just me and you going, yeah, right, mate. So wrote this thing, we're going to read it now. To having like our intro set and our outro set, and like the format is a lot stronger now. And there's part of me is like, I do wonder, I wish we had the format down at the start of recording, so that it sounds a bit slicker at the start and a bit better.
Yeah, but I think we would have had to do a practice thing first in order for that format to develop.
Yeah, we didn't know how it was going to evolve either. And again, it's that anxiety thing, isn't it, of being a grown-up and looking back and going, I wish I'd done this a bit better and stuff like that. But fuck it, we did it. So in the keeping of the spirit of Tamora Geeson, we just did it, and it's out there.
Forever.
Fuck you if you don't like it! So, speaking of the show then, what are your favourite memories of it? Your favourite episodes, favourite moments?
I think my favourite bits is always like the callbacks to the dumb things that become the running jokes. Chip central heating. I don't know why. And not just that, but like the characters.
Yeah.
Because we've taken these utterly one-dimensional characters and made them 1.5-dimensional.
Yeah, Tifa was never written to be dumb.
But it works, and we just sort of polluted everything she said to make her sound dumb. So and even just characters who are in there for like one episode, like Bites. It sort of became not a fan favorite but a creator favorite anyway.
I love Bites. I want to go back to Bites because we mentioned him in the notes, didn't we, towards the end of the season. I'm like, Bites comes back. We didn't get to that. God damn it.
And it is this weird kind of like if you're really into like a TV series or a game or whatever, you get those characters that you just fucking love. And I feel like there's been more than our fair share of those type of characters, for me anyway, in the series. Yeah,
absolutely. Like, Jack Bentley, just because his voice kind of morphed him into this character that wasn't really there either and stuff like that. And, I mean, the process we have of trying to find voices for characters, it's a good job it's ending because we were out. We were really out.
We were beyond out.
And another thing I noticed as well is things that I can say my favourite bits now are like some of the glaring plot holes. Like just going back to the earlier episode, Jay's dad's name changes.
Right.
He's Freddy in the first episode, and then we call him Brian later on. And do you remember the prophecy MC gets where... They go for a little... This is in season 3, I think. They go for a little trip in the woods, and they run across these little sort of demon creatures that they help out.
Oh, and there's the guy who's trying to move to the moon or something.
Yeah, he's trying to take over Jupiter.
That's the one.
He prophesies about MC's son before he's sucked into a portable. And obviously I meant Amy.
Yeah.
But I said son instead of daughter. So I don't know when that changed or if I forgot I'd said that.
MC was going to have another son.
Oh, calm down, please. No. Social services.
I think MC probably got not castrated.
Well,
possibly,
just to be on the safe side. But then there's things like you said that become the regulars that we have. So we've got like All Known Crime, which is again in season 1, but is prevalent throughout because it's brilliant. Revenge is in the first episode.
That's a good one.
Yeah, all the typos.
Yeah.
Hundled.
I remember Hundled.
Denotonator. The basketball ball. And then I can't even remember how we managed to get Gav to being 15.
I don't know.
That was one of my favourite. Naked and 15-year-old Gav just became one of my favourite bits as well.
And of course you said prophecy. I nearly said prophecy there. But yeah, prophecy.
It will always, no matter how many prophecies we come across in our lives.
I will always think prophecy.
Always.
I mean, you said earlier, that since lockdown and everything, you haven't really been doing much writing, but you are a writer, you write, and, you've produced a lot of stuff since Tamora Geeson. How how instrumental would you say that Tamora Gayson has been to your development as a writer? How influential has it been? You know, if you hadn't written Tamora Gayson, would it have been something else? Would you have just not developed as much as a writer because you just didn't have that quantity of output?
Yeah, I think that in a way is that you can see the progression in the actual writing that Teenage Me was on. And I'm not saying I'm a great writer now, but I'm definitely better. I think, because like you said, you know, the quote about having to write a million bad words, I think that's essential to Tamora Gayson because how prolific I was with the writing in such a weird time that just having that output enabled me to practice my craft in quotation marks. You know, that was my craft at the time. And I'm sure every writer, you know, if they read something bad they wrote when they were a teenager, would hate it and it would be bad, you know, unless you're fucking some child, you know, prodigy or something like that. But yeah, I think it was essential to have that kind of practice to work out what I was doing wrong. And not even just from a creative output, but from, you know, learning how writing works and how to format stuff. And grammar was super important for a writer. So it was really, really good practice. I wish I'd not necessarily continued that, but I wish I'd stayed as prolific as I was.
Sure.
But in some ways, maybe there was a slight detriment in that I spent so much time writing this one thing that it kind of burnt me out a little, because you can tell in the last few seasons that I just want to be done with this. So I do wonder if maybe I'd been writing other things or hadn't been so focused on this that maybe I would have written a few other terrible things and progressed in slightly different ways and maybe wouldn't have got so burnt out by having to feel like I had to finish this series.
Yeah, I guess it's a strange sort of, because the format of it is this weird sort of like, it's a TV series, but it's written, and it's not scripted not written like a script.
No, it's a piece of fiction, I guess.
It is essentially it's like a serial.
Yes, yeah.
With self-contained, I guess, chapters are sort of episodes, sort of.
Yeah, I guess, kinda, yeah.
But yeah, I do wonder if maybe because you were thinking of it as a TV series, and TV series that, you know, notorious for just going on and on and on and on, maybe you felt that you had to keep writing.
Yeah.
Whereas if it had been a book, it would have had more of a pronounced sort of beginning, middle, and end right from the get-go. Yeah,
I think I definitely had a TV format in my head, because obviously episodes end with like, not cliffhangers, but there's things that set up the next episode and stuff, and a sort of, tune in next week to see what's going to happen. But that's just because I didn't know what I was doing, and that's how Buffy and Angel did it. So, you know, and obviously influenced by comic books as well, which have that kind of like, buy the next issue because stuff's going to happen, and just kind of watered it down into something that was readable, because I would have been very early into my sort of learning how to script and stuff like that. So I'm glad I didn't write it like that, because we would have missed things, very important descriptions of things. Because obviously scripting, you don't put that much detail in. We would have missed out on like the nightclub scene, which probably would have been a good thing.
Hey, that was art. That spoke to me.
I think the only way you could see that as art is if you're an actual Nazi. All right, MC, pretty obvious question, but who were your favourite characters and what were your favourite voices to do?
Obviously not the one.
Oh, man. That ruined your throat. Because there was a time when we were recording a lot, but you could only do like one episode a day because it just killed your throat.
I think my favourite voice to do was probably Tifa, because I modelled it after like a ASMR sort of voice.
Yeah.
So it was soothing.
We had to put you really close to the mic.
Soothing to do.
Yeah, and it's nice to see how that evolved as well, because I don't know how it happened, but we made her a bit dumber, and you kind of took that into your inflection and stuff like that as well. Yeah. It was nicely done. It was a great performance.
Some of my favourite bits, tooting my own trumpet here, but like, there are a couple times when I come up with something on the fly and deliver it in Tifa's voice as Tifa, and it's just so good. Just moments of raw stupidity.
She's another character actually that obviously fictional and based on something from another franchise, but nothing to do with Tifa Lockhart
at all.
No, nothing. We very much built that character from the one-dimensional thing on the page to whatever she became in the end. I really enjoyed your Evangelina voice, which is another one I think you regretted.
Yeah.
What was your process in that?
I need a new voice, and I've exhausted the limited repertoire of accents and pitches that I could do, so I'm just going to do all of the pitches.
I do think when you started doing that, you very much thought she was a sort of
Yes.
one and done,
Yes.
one line character or something like that. But didn't she have like a monologue at some point?
She sure did. Several, I think.
I was really tempted to go back and like find an episode later on of a character that had a lot of dialogue and just like replace their character's name and put Evangelina in instead.
Are you sure this is Evangelina? It seems a lot like something MC would say. No, it's Evangelina. She's replaced MC in this series.
The voices we do for the 4 main characters, so yourself, me, Jay, and Louise. I think there's very much like I think our performances have changed a lot since the start as well. But I think that's evolved the voices somewhat as well. Like Jay is a bit more high pitched at the start.
Yeah.
Louise is a bit deeper at the start.
Yeah.
Our natural voices change, but again, I think that's more performance than.
I've noticed. So like, it's always been a sort of a joke with us, and also a reality that. Among all the sort of various creative things that we've done, I've always just been a fucking atrocious actor. Like, I'm not saying it's changed now.
Give me your womble, bitch.
Yeah. So, like, I've just never been able to act to get into that space.
Yeah.
So just sort of, I guess, overthink it, can't get out of my own head kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And although, I mean, I won't be going for the Oscar just yet, but there have been times in recording the series where I've noticed that I'm actually kind of emoting a voice. And I'm not saying I do it consistently or well, but the fact that I can do it at all is, a sign of my development as an actor.
Well, we're never going to put this out there and say this is the best thing we've ever done.
Yeah.
But we have definitely improved, I think, as acting this. Not necessarily as actors, because we're not. But in terms of this, the improvement is there.
Yeah.
Some other of yours I liked are Harato.
Yeah.
He had a very distinct voice, which I enjoyed very much.
One of the things about a lot of the characters is that I think with Harato, I kept on switching between him and Tifa. Like, there's similarities in the voice, so sometimes needs a bit of a run-up at the voice.
Uh-huh. Well, I mean, the same with, like, I think the most extreme possibly is Jay and his dad.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of conversation, especially in the last season, between those two. There would have been more if I'd written more.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of sort of like, well, I just need to take a break in between, and then off we go. Because we don't do it like, professionals do, where you do all of Jay's lines, then all of Brian's lines. We do it like they're actually having a conversation. Yeah. But yeah, that must have been tough.
Yeah, I think there was... I know there was something with the One and somebody else, maybe MC. I don't know if there's the One and Jay. I feel like that would be the absolute worst.
Oh, the One.
Or the One and Tifa, that would also be a bit of a contrast.
Yeah, they're different scales, aren't they? Yeah.
How about you, man? Because you've also... this might surprise you, but there's only 2 people doing this. So
don't pull back the curtain.
You have shouldered more than your fair share of the burden.
Yeah, I've never really had one that's broken my voice, I don't think, apart from post-corona when some of them were a bit hard. I really enjoyed Detective Jack Bentley.
Yeah.
That was one of my favourites to do recently, just because I kind of got into his frame of mind. You're like, I'm a cool asshole. Scoot. Oh, God,
I love Scoot.
When he died, man, I was like, I want to keep doing that voice forever.
Yeah.
That was one of my favourite.
Also, again, peeling back the curtain, but Chip often comes up with a little physical gesture to help him sort of embody the character. So with Scoot, he does this little sort of like extended thumb and little finger surfer dude wave kind of thing, and it was always like, hello bro,
it's like the Shaka Bra kind of thing, isn't it? Yeah.
And hello bro, just to kick things off.
I missed that. Bring back Scoot. Do you know, speaking of the voices that we did and stuff like that, one other thing that changed as well, and I don't know if this means we're progressing as people or what, but in the early seasons, Shinno Khan, another voice of yours I enjoyed, was a lot more racist early on. And there's a difference between, because when we voiced Lee, you gave him a very, very racist accent. And in fact, we were like, well, I'm not putting all the blame on you.
Right.
We were like, oh, okay, you have to do this because it's in tone with the show.
Sure.
But then when it came to like the Ipswich terrorists,
Yeah.
we refused to do a Middle Eastern accent.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we've just grown as people, or we're just
Possibly.
a bit more aware of how offensive this stuff can be.
Is it because the quality... Well, yeah, I think probably that. And maybe because the quality of the writing improved, so we felt like it wouldn't you would have been slightly less racist when you wrote it?
I don't think it was racism. It was just dumb because I was like, I don't know what a Korean person is when I'm 14.
Sure.
And and it is very much like this is like some sort of like stupid comedy to the point where we're trying to deliver it in a serious manner. So it didn't seem appropriate to kind of talk about these serious real life things in those ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we were more immersed in the time period in which it was written back then, because I mean 90s or whenever it was definitely a time of casual racism in popular media.
Yeah, it was just accepted, wasn't it? One of the things I found most difficult was anytime we had a female character.
Yes.
It's always difficult because we don't have a lot of range when it comes to that. Because, you know, our podcast isn't very diverse, MC. We're just two straight white men. So that was always difficult to manage that.
Yeah.
Yeah. At least with Kat, it could be like, okay, you're the American version of Louise. That's fine.
I think with every female voice that I had to do, it's like, okay, don't do Tifa. Shit.
And there was stuff like with Dom as well. Like Dom is a real life person who's very dear to us.
Yeah.
And it was just like, I'm just going to do a Michael Caine style voice for him. Don't know why, but there we go.
Because we're not actually good at doing impressions of people.
Well, apart from Gav, which my voice for Gav
very
is
true.
spot on, like 100%.
Uncanny. I have to look over to make sure it's not actually a 15-year-old Gav covered in oil next to me. But no, that's next to Louise. If you could go back and give your teenage self one piece of writing advice other than don't be sexist, don't be racist,
just inject it with a nice dose of wokeness.
Don't hate the homeless. What would it be? Is there like one thing in particular you think that would have improved your writing?
Well, in a way, like if I go back and get Teenage Ship to improve the writing, then we don't have this. A lot of it is based on how many typos there are and the formatting the lamppost demons and other things that are really dumb. Genetics Office. So in a way, I wouldn't do that. I think mostly I'd just get back and give him a hug. Is what I'd like to do.
Go, get off me.
And also try to get him to finish it.
Yeah.
Because it would have been nice if we could have seen this through to the end completely without having to kind of rely on a lot of the vague notes. And that was maybe one of the disappointments about doing the podcast, was that we kind of had to piece together what could have happened with a lot of the vague notes where most of it was stuck in my head and where it was going to go. But then, maybe that was quite a fun game as well. It's kind of based on the characters that we've come up with on the very loose characterizations of Teenage Chip and put it all together that way. Yeah, that was kind of fun as well. So I don't think I would, apart from the obvious, like, dude, this is not okay, come on, because a lot of it relies on my inane writings from back then.
Kind of on the same subject, actually, let's take a moment to visit a strange parallel universe where
we go through a portal
tomorrow. There is a prophecy that Tomorrow-Gason continued. You never stopped.
Yeah,
you just carried on writing, and as you developed as a writer, the Tomorrow-Gason developed as well, and so you became aware of its sort of derivative nature. You did, I don't know, all that sort of stuff. What does that look like now?
God.
Is it still MC and Chip? Have they both, did they both die off and get replaced by someone else? Did it turn into a period drama? I don't know.
Well, Scoot would have come back.
Yeah.
So do you mean like we have to keep the lore as it was from the start?
In a sort of comic book way kind of thing, where, there's always that sort of rich history to draw on, and there is like an evolution of the plot and the characters, but you're not necessarily 100% obligated to keep all the same characters and the same themes and whatever.
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, in a lot of ways, like, I love comic books and collect them and stuff like that, but sometimes I do feel like they're held down by their history.
Yes.
In the sense of like, for someone new trying to get into comics, like, I want to read some Spider-Man, where do I start? I mean, do you go back to the 60s?
Yeah.
Or do you just like buy the newest issue and just try to pick up what's happened? So it's difficult in that sense. I mean, you can see that I'm trying to do that in a way. Like, the ideas behind the last seasons of Tomorrow-Gason and Chip are very much kind of building on that sort of stupid premise of like, they trained for a year and they became ninjas? What? So trying to rectify that in a way.
Yeah.
So I don't think you could. I think if you extend it any longer than it actually is, it outstays its welcome.
Yeah.
There's not so many ideas you can do where they just fight. I mean, it's infinite, really, as comics have proven, because you have new characters, new villains.
But they can be very samey.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there can be a lot of that. So it would have been interesting to kind of. I mean, I had an idea of like bringing it back, like a very brief one of like how I'd bring it back now. So it would have, and in that sense, it would have been evolved in the sense that it would be kind of taking the piss out of itself whilst trying to still do the drama, but be very aware.
Yeah.
Because we had this conversation when we knew that I hadn't finished it. It was like, well, do I go back and try and finish it now? But then I think it's a bit too jarring if it's in the same season.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't have that kind of, not charm, but, you know, that kind of effect of like, this is what, authenticity.
That was
I can't even say it.
Authentic Tamara Gayson grade typo.
Yeah, it would have been like, you know, like, who wrote June? Oh, what's his name?
Herbert? Frank
yes,
Herbert?
like when he died, obviously his son took over writing him, and it's not the same.
Yeah.
So I think it would have been a bit like that in a way. But I think it would be quite fun to bring it back and try and write it in the same stupid way, but with being like a more accepting person and a more open person.
Would it be Chip and MC like 10 years later, basically?
Well, like 17. I
Well,
mean,
yeah.
Do you want me to tell you the very brief idea?
Absolutely.
Oh my god, okay.
This isn't a commitment to do this. I think Chip's earned a break at this point.
Yeah, so I can't remember what it was. This was a couple of months ago now. Where I was just walking and like a song came onto like my random Spotify playlist. It was by a band called Finch.
I vaguely remember that name.
They were from like the early 2000s and very much like what I would have been listening to when I was writing. One of their songs is actually the theme tune for Tamora Gayson. Like, as in what? You remember we shot like an opening credit sequence?
Oh God, I remember.
Yeah, glad I never found that. The music for that is actually a Finch song.
Right.
But it would be, you know, they go down to hell.
Yeah.
And they go through like a little hole in the ground or whatever it is, you know, wherever they find. It would be like 17, 18 years later.
Right.
And you see like a hand come up and then like an older Chip emerges.
Right.
And, you know, you don't really know what's going on, but he goes back to like New York and stuff like that and looks up like his old life. And yeah, he's been fighting in hell for like 18 years or whatever. So it's
so it's fine. Whenever he goes to hell, he always comes out really like mentally well adjusted.
So think of it as like an ongoing war that they've been in.
Right.
But it's only Chip that emerges for now.
Right.
And then, you know, he goes back and he's got kind of that kind of post-war PTSD and stuff like that. Yeah. You know, and there'll be some details about like whether they were successful or not, or he retreated or whatever. And then at the end of the first episode, Jay, Louise, and MC come out.
Right.
But they're all a bit weird, and it turns out they're possessed by like demons and stuff like that. So they become the bad guys for a bit, and then Chip has to fight them and get the demons out of them.
Right.
And then the original gang come back together.
Right.
And that's about as far as I got, to be honest. Had some like other random ideas involving like, you know, Riddy and Kat and stuff like that as well. But yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So not a lot there, but it was just I just had this image in my head of all them coming back, and then the demons that have been chasing them through hell and chasing them to Earth as well, and then having a nice come back together moment for all the gang.
It's good though, because it does sort of address that, you know, it's years later, so there were both in real life and in universe, and because it's in universe, that explains why the tone of the show is different, the writing is so much better, and that kind of thing.
It's a different world they come back to.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not going to be able to find another abandoned mansion anywhere, are they? So
abandoned bedsit.
Well, MC, that was Tamora Gayson and how I ripped off Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Dude.
Been a few years, been a lot of work, but we're here at the end. I had a few people that I wanted to thank, so I'm just gonna do that now, if that's all right.
Go for it.
So I'd like to thank Jack, Lee, Joe the monster who couldn't be destroyed with weapons, Carol, Jay's dad Freddie, Jay's dad Brian.
What if they were gay dads? What if they were evil gay dads?
That could be in the new woke version.
Yeah.
The local mafia, Smuckle demons,
Amazing.
Gav the vampire,
Yep.
Steph, Scoot, Tifa Lockhart.
No, she fucking killed my car. The bitch.
Thooncum. No, actually not Thooncum.
I was going to say, yeah.
No. The Brummy Pizza.
Oh my god.
Dom the Antiques Dealer and Wizard and Angel. Strider.
The coolest guy in the universe.
Captain Wakefield. The Police Office. Fiddly O'Doodly.
Oh god.
Everyone on the notorious streets of war.
Keep it real, guys.
Captain Parnaby. Chief Inspector Harato. The SWAT. Mr. Johnson / Karushi Minato, Louis, the psychotic physiotherapist, the DeSoto,
Goddamn right.
Turek,
I remember.
Mike and Tim from the I Hate Life Club.
Hi guys, who wants sausage rolls?
Evangelina, the One, Jason, the Australian zombie.
That was good.
The Kuklaw Elders.
They were dicks.
The Tokyo Memorial Bed and
Fuck
Breakfast.
that place. 1 star on TripAdvisor.
Manny, Granak, Beatlass, Dick Pills Selling Demon,
Did a lot of
Choke Wank
business.
Demon,
Yeah, there's a theme.
Bert and Johnny,
Oh yeah.
Mrs. Lansbury, Dwayne McCarthy, Roots, Relina, Shirag of the Instepticore clan, Tarek and the Ipswich Terrorists, Furia, Peter, Robin, Melvin and his overkept slut of a wife, Rodney, Vic,
The nicest, evilest post office manager world ender there's ever been.
Stuart, Tanis, Dark Blue,
The puddle.
Mock,
Oh, poor guy.
Detective Jack Bentley, Bites,
Hero of the series.
Grant Maloney, Terry, Ridley, Kat, Amy,
Nah, fuck her.
Gav, Shinno Khan, Jay, Louise, Chip, and MC. Thank you for being in our lives for all these years. Thank you for all this bollocks we've had to put up with. And thank you to everyone who's ever listened, whoever's supported the podcast, done a tweet about it, got in touch with us about anything that we've said, and just anyone that's been along for the ride. We really, really appreciate you sticking with us all this time. And we're going to miss you.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. But it's not the end for us.
It's not.
We're not going to go...
We're not going to kill ourselves.
We're not going to go down to hell and try and end it all. At some point, we will bring back Backdoor Bookworms on this channel.
Yeah.
We are going to finish...
Sonic High School.
Finally.
Don't worry, Leaky. We got you, bro.
I like to think there's a crossover of people who don't listen to each show, so we're... Who the fuck is Leaky?
Well, Leaky the anal gland, obviously.
Even better. And then we're going to move over to Twitch, and we're going to do some Twitch stuff. I'm
are.
already kind of set up over there.
Like 2 years behind the curve. But
Yay! This brand new thing. So if you want to come give me a follow, it's twitch.tv/Chip Thompson's Thumbs. Come and give us a follow. We're going to be playing some video games on there and doing some Twitch stuff. Sonic High School to come as well. And if we do any other projects in the meantime, we'll be sure to let you know on the usual social media channels. Because MC, did you know that no matter what, there is always numerous ways in which you can get in touch? You can find us on Facebook. We're at facebook.com/HowIRippedOffPodcast.
And we're also on Twitter at How I Ripped Off.
And you can find our entire back catalogue if you want to listen to everything again. SoundCloud, Stitcher Radio, iTunes, YouTube and Spotify.
If you are still listening after 140 something, whatever it is, episodes, it may be time.
We've never asked before, but...
to leave us a review.
And a rating. Star rating.
Yes.
Yes.
5, obviously. Yeah, if you want to, we would really appreciate it. In this big old wild west of an internet, there's a lot of podcasts out there, and even the greatest one out there, namely us. It's, we just want to make sure people get enjoy it, appreciate it. If you want to share your love of all the fucking shit that Chip mentioned, the Brummy Pizza, all those things. If you've got any friends who are a little bit weird, we'd have to be to enjoy this.
Anyone you
no
hate.
Judgment. Yeah.
Send them to, because every time you leave a 5-star rating and a review, it means we get a little bump and more people see us. So if you did like the show and you'd like other people to see it as well and hear it, then do that, because it really helps us out.
Imagine if you've been listening to this the whole time, you'd be like, oh, if only I had someone else I could talk to about Tomorrow Jason. I'm sure it happens all the time. You're like, this latest plot development, but there's no one to talk to. There's no one I know. This is your chance.
I like to think that anyone listening to the show does it shamefully. They're just sat in a corner and they're just
in a dark room at
can't
night.
tell anyone like listening to the show. Much like a choke wank MC.
I have a long shower after. Oh God, I said last time was going to be the last episode.
And if you have been listening all this time, we hope you got your Tomorrow Jason.